My beloved child. There are moments in life when silence carries more weight than 1,000 spoken words. This is one of those moments. Somewhere, a heart that has remained quiet for far too long has finally reached the point where hiding is no longer possible. For countless days and restless nights, emotions were folded away like fragile pages inside a forgotten journal. Those feelings were never erased. They were only waiting for the courage to be seen. Today, that waiting ends. Not because destiny demanded it. Not because time forced it. But because love itself became too powerful to remain unspoken. Imagine someone sitting alone beneath the soft glow of a single lamp. The room is still. Outside, the world continues as though nothing extraordinary is happening. Yet inside that room, one simple sheet of paper is about to change everything. The first line is written. Then erased. Written again. Then crossed out once more. Every sentence is a battle between fear and hope. Every pause carries years of unanswered questions. Who is this letter for? Why has it taken so long to write? And why does every word seem to carry the weight of an entire lifetime? Those answers are coming. For now, simply listen with an open heart. Sometimes people speak with their voices. Sometimes they speak with their actions. But once in a lifetime, someone chooses to speak through a letter because paper never interrupts, paper never judges, and paper patiently holds every tear that falls upon it. This story begins at the exact moment that letter is finally unfolded. The writer hesitates. Their hands tremble. Their heartbeat refuses to slow. One final breath. One final glance at the empty page. Then the first sentence appears. If these words ever find you, it means I finally found the courage I have been searching for. Everything changes from that moment onward. The writer remembers every conversation left unfinished. Every smile that lasted only a second. Every goodbye that felt much longer than it appeared. There were countless opportunities to speak honestly. Yet fear always arrived first. Fear whispered that honesty might destroy everything. Fear insisted that silence was safer. But silence has its own cost. Silence grows heavier every day until it becomes impossible to carry. That is why this letter exists. Not to rewrite the past. Not to erase mistakes. But to reveal a truth that has refused to disappear. As each line fills the page, memories begin returning like stars appearing one after another across the evening sky. Small moments. Forgotten moments. Beautiful moments. The writer realizes those ordinary memories were never ordinary at all. Each one quietly built a story that neither heart fully understood at the time. And hidden inside those memories lies one remarkable revelation that neither person expected. Before that revelation is uncovered, another page is turned. The handwriting changes slightly. The sentences become steadier. The fear slowly transforms into determination. It is no longer simply a letter. It becomes a confession. Not of guilt. Not of regret. But of feelings that refuse to disappear regardless of distance, silence, or time. If I could return to one single day, the letter continues, would choose the moment I decided not to tell you what my heart already knew. Those words linger. They are not dramatic. They are honest. Sometimes honesty is the most powerful sentence anyone can write. The writer pauses once more. A tiny drop lands upon the paper. Not from rain. Not from accident. But from emotion that could no longer remain hidden. Every page now carries something more than ink. It carries courage. The courage to risk being misunderstood. The courage to risk disappointment. The courage to finally allow another soul to see the truth exactly as it has always existed. Yet one final paragraph remains unwritten. And that final paragraph contains the one truth capable of changing everything that came before it. No one knows how those closing words will end. Not yet. Because before the final sentence can be written, something unexpected happens. A forgotten memory suddenly returns. A memory so significant that it forces the writer to stop. The pen freezes. The room falls silent once again. And the next words may become the most important words ever placed upon that page. A single heartbeat can change the direction of an entire story, and that is exactly what happened in the next moment. The pen remained suspended above the page as if even the ink understood that what was about to be written could never be taken back. The silence inside the room became almost sacred. Every memory that had been locked away for so long suddenly rushed forward, demanding to be heard. The writer slowly closed their eyes and whispered, "No more hiding." From that instant, every sentence became clearer. The letter continued. There is something I have carried inside me for longer than you could ever imagine. I convinced myself that keeping quiet was protecting both of us, but every day that passed only made the weight heavier. I smiled when everyone expected me to smile, but behind every smile was a question I never stopped asking. What if I had simply told you the truth? Take a deep breath as you listen, because the next part of this letter reveals emotions that have never been spoken aloud before. The writer paused again, looking toward the window where the evening sky had begun to darken. Countless stars were appearing one by one, almost as though heaven itself was reminding them that even the smallest light can shine through the deepest darkness. The hand holding the pen was no longer trembling. Something had changed. Fear had begun losing its grip. Hope had quietly taken its place. There were countless moments when I wanted to reach out to you. I almost sent a message. I almost made the call. I almost stood in front of you and admitted everything. But every single time, I convinced myself that tomorrow would be a better day. Tomorrow never came. Weeks became months. Months became seasons. Yet the feelings remained exactly where they had always been. Not weaker. Not forgotten. Only hidden. The writer looked down at another unfinished page. This page felt different. It carried the words that had been avoided for the longest time. I need you to know something that I have never had the courage to say. You changed parts of my life that you never even realized existed. You taught me what kindness could feel like. You reminded me that hope can survive even after disappointment. You became the quiet thought that followed me wherever I went. For a long moment, nothing else was written. Only silence. Sometimes silence speaks louder than words ever could. Then, another sentence appeared. I don't expect anything from you after reading this. I am not writing because I want to force an ending or create a beginning. I am writing because truth deserves to be spoken before time carries it away forever. Those words filled the room with unexpected peace. This was no longer simply a confession. It had become freedom. Every hidden emotion was finally finding its place. As another page turned, an old photograph slipped quietly from between the folded papers. The writer picked it up with gentle hands. A smile appeared. Not because the memory was perfect, but because it was real. Do you remember that ordinary day we laughed without any reason? Everyone else probably forgot it before sunset. I never did. That simple moment stayed with me. Whenever life became difficult, I returned to that memory because it reminded me that genuine happiness once existed. The letter was no longer telling a story. It was opening a heart. Every paragraph revealed another layer that had remained hidden for far too long. But then, everything stopped again. The writer noticed one final blank page waiting at the very end. This was the page they had feared most, because it contained the one sentence that could never be rewritten once it touched the paper. The room became completely still. The clock continued ticking. The candle burned lower. Outside, the night grew quieter. Inside, the heart grew louder. The pen touched the paper once more. Very slowly. Very carefully. One final message began to appear. If there is one thing I hope you remember after reading every word in this letter, it is this. The sentence stopped. No more words followed. Only 3 tiny dots remained at the end of the page. Why? Because the writer realized that the final truth deserved more than ink. It deserved perfect timing. And that final truth is still waiting to be revealed. The final page remained untouched for what felt like an eternity, as though the writer knew that once the last words were written, there would be no turning back. The room was quiet except for the gentle sound of the clock marking each passing second. Every tick seemed to ask the same question. Will the truth finally be spoken? The writer looked at the unfinished sentence once again. If there is one thing I hope you remember after reading every word in this letter, it is this. A slow breath escaped. Then, with a courage that had taken years to find, the pen moved across the paper. I never stopped believing that our story deserved honesty. Those words brought an unexpected calm. It was as if the burden carried for so long had finally begun to lift. The writer smiled, not because every problem had disappeared, but because hiding was no longer necessary. Another line followed. Life gave me countless reasons to remain silent, yet my heart kept giving me one reason to speak, you. The ink flowed more smoothly now. Every sentence carried a quiet confidence. There were days when I convinced myself that forgetting you would be easier than facing my feelings. I traveled through crowded places, met new faces, stayed busy with endless responsibilities, but no matter how much life changed around me, one familiar thought always returned. The writer paused. That familiar thought had never been complicated. It had always been simple. I hoped you were smiling. No grand promises. No dramatic declarations. Just one honest wish. Sometimes the purest emotions are the simplest ones. The next paragraph revealed something even deeper. If I ever seemed distant, it was never because my heart had changed. It was because I was afraid that speaking too soon might destroy something precious. I chose silence, believing it was kindness, but now I understand that honesty is the greatest kindness I could have offered. The pages no longer felt heavy. Each one seemed lighter than the last. The truth has a remarkable way of doing that. Suddenly, another folded piece of paper slipped from inside the envelope. It was much older. Its edges had faded with time. The writer unfolded it carefully. It was the very first version of this letter. Most of the words had been crossed out. Some sentences had been erased completely. Only one line remained untouched. "One day I will tell you everything." The writer looked at those words for a long time. That promise had waited patiently through countless seasons. Now it was finally being fulfilled. The candle beside the letter flickered softly. Its light danced across every page as though illuminating each hidden memory. The writer continued. "You may never realize how many times I almost handed you this letter. There were moments when it rested in my pocket, moments when it sat beside my phone, moments when I stood only a few steps away. Every time, fear whispered louder than courage. But tonight is different. Tonight, fear has nothing left to say." The final page was nearly complete. Only one small space remained. The writer knew exactly what belonged there. Not a dramatic ending. Not a perfect ending. Simply the truest ending. The pen moved one last time. "Whatever tomorrow brings, I am grateful that these words finally found their way to you. They have lived inside my heart for far too long, and now they are finally free." The writer gently folded the letter. Carefully placed it back inside its envelope. Then something unexpected happened. As the envelope was sealed, another tiny note slipped out from behind it, a note that had been hidden all along. Unlike the others, it contained only a single sentence. No explanation. No signature. Just one mysterious line written in careful handwriting. "The greatest part of this story has not been written yet." The writer stared at those words in complete surprise. They had no memory of writing them. Yet there they were. Waiting. Patiently. As though they had always known this journey was leading towards something far greater than a single letter. And somewhere beyond this moment, a new chapter was already beginning. Not every ending arrives with a farewell, sometimes it arrives with the beginning of a truth that has waited its entire life to be heard. The sealed envelope rested quietly on the table, yet it seemed to carry the weight of countless unspoken moments. The writer could have walked away. The letter had been finished. Every hidden emotion had finally been placed onto paper. But something deep inside whispered that one final step still remained. The writer picked up the envelope once more and gently turned it over. On the back was a single handwritten sentence that had not been there before. "If your heart has brought you this far, then perhaps our story was never about coincidence." Those words sent a wave of emotion through the room. How could one simple sentence hold so much meaning? The writer smiled softly, remembering every moment that had led to this night. The missed conversations. The unfinished goodbyes. The silent hopes. The quiet prayers. Every one of them had become part of this letter without anyone realizing it. The next page, hidden beneath the envelope, revealed something unexpected. It was not another confession. It was a list. Not of regrets. Not of mistakes. But of small moments that had never been forgotten. The day we laughed over something no one else understood. The moment I realized your happiness mattered to me more than my own pride. The evening when I wanted to speak, but fear convinced me to stay silent. The countless nights I hoped life would give us another chance to understand each other. Each memory felt ordinary on its own. Yet together they formed something extraordinary. A story built not on grand events, but on quiet moments that had refused to fade. The writer folded the list carefully and placed it inside the envelope. Then another thought appeared. Perhaps love is not measured by the words spoken first, but by the courage to speak them before it is too late. That thought lingered. It echoed through every corner of the room. Outside, the first light of dawn began to color the horizon. A new day was quietly arriving. The writer opened the window and let the cool morning air fill the room. For the first time in a very long while, the future no longer felt frightening. It felt possible. The envelope was finally ready. But before it could leave the writer's hands, one last page caught their attention. It contained only a single question. If you could relive one moment, would you choose silence or honesty? The writer didn't hesitate. The answer came instantly. Honesty. Because honesty had brought peace where silence had only created uncertainty. The envelope was placed into a small wooden box that had protected cherished memories for years. Inside that same box were old photographs, faded notes, tiny keepsakes, and reminders of moments that time could never erase. Now the letter joined them, not as another memory hidden away, but as a symbol of courage finally found. Yet just as the lid was about to close, something unexpected happened. A folded piece of paper slipped from beneath the box. It looked newer than everything else. The writer slowly unfolded it. There was no date. No name. Only one remarkable sentence. If you are reading this, then your letter has already changed more than one heart. The writer froze. Those words had never been written before. Or had they? The mystery remained. Perhaps some questions are not meant to be answered immediately. Perhaps the greatest discoveries arrive only after we have found the courage to tell the truth. The writer smiled once again, this time with complete peace. The letter had fulfilled its purpose. It had transformed fear into courage, silence into honesty, uncertainty into hope. But as the morning sun rose higher, one gentle breeze carried the envelope ever so slightly across the table, revealing something hidden underneath. A second envelope. Untouched. Unopened. Waiting. Across the front, in elegant handwriting, were the words. Your reply begins here. And in that quiet, hopeful moment, it became clear that this story had never been about one letter alone. It was always about two hearts finally finding the courage to write the next chapter together.